I'm Chief Meteorologist Mark Weinberg. He's Rick DeLuca. We wanted to do a video that may be a little bit different than what we do on the norm here. And we wanted to go to the tropics, Rick, because there's been so much interest in this hurricane.
Yeah.
And before we get going on this, just a reminder, if you have any friends or family that might be interested in what's going on with this, I think because Jamaica is such a highly traveled island, I think so many people have been there at some point in their lives that you definitely get the sense of high interest. And then second, Jamaica's not seen this.
No, ever in history.
Recorded history. I mean, some people have asked me, well, how do you know if it didn't happen in 500 AD? Fair.
Yeah.
And recorded history goes back 150 years.
Which is a pretty long time.
So this is something that for that period is not occurred. A reminder here, there's 225 people on my Facebook page right now. If you have any friends or family that might be interested, here's what I need you to do. If you're on my Facebook page, click like if you enjoyed the video and share it. When you share the video with your friends and family, you're going to let them know we're covering what's going to be going on with Melissa, because we think that this is going to be a high interest topic. We think there's a lot of people that are curious about what's going to happen.
We're getting some shares in here, Mark, which is a good thing.
Okay.
So that's kind of the message he's trying to say is if you share it, it releases to more people, and that way we can get the information, good information, out to as many who are interested in this. So thank you so much for the sharing coming from Dawn. Again, sharing, liking, and this is one that Jamaica is not going to forget. I saw a picture, Mark, today.
It's a metric.
It is. People were taking cinder blocks and putting them on the roof. Just, I mean, anything they can do, hoping that it will keep the roof of their house on, which, as you know, it's not going to be an effective resource in this one.
And Melissa is not your normal hurricane, unfortunately. So, again, if you guys are just joining in here, please share the video out with your friends, family, let them know what we're discussing. And we want to kind of get into this one fairly quickly because it is such a monumental topic here. Rick, you know, the M storms have some history with us. I was chasing Hurricane Michael in 2018 when it made landfall. Rick knows I've been chasing a long time, so I chased Hurricane Katrina in 2005. I was 4 blocks off the ocean and witnessed a 28.5-foot storm surge. And then Michael in 2018, and this was until recently. Rick, you had Hurricane Michael and you standing in front of that hurricane as the background on your Facebook page. Why?
I mean, just you don't see a storm of that strength making landfall in the U.S. that often. It had the eye was insane. It was perfect. It was annular. And, you know, I don't like having that shot because of, you know, the horrific things that happened down in parts of Florida.
But it's just career.
It's a career kind of photo that someone took. I think someone took it and just sent it to me. And after the fact, I realized, oh, it's a pretty cool shot to have. But that's after seeing all the devastation. So you kind of feel guilty, but at the same time, you can't pass up the opportunity.
But that's what this is.
Yeah.
This is something that will be in textbooks. This is something that will be etched on the minds of Jamaicans forever. Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico several years ago. I believe it was 17. Hurricane Maria went through Puerto Rico as a high-end Cat 4. It devastated the island, it took the radar out. It literally destroyed the radar. It laid down virtually every tree on the island. It was devastating in every possible sense of the term. And this is going to ravage the island of Jamaica. And Rick, the problem here is this is 175-mile-an-hour winds, which in itself, that's Dorian level. And we remember what that did to the Abaco Islands in the Bahamas. But this is also going to be dropping obscene rain. So the flooding, it's freshwater flooding. And then you have that alternate, which is the seawater flooding from the surge. Like
30 inches of rain combined with all the water that piles up with the wind pushing that on shore. I'm not looking forward to seeing what this looks like. It kind of makes me sick a little bit to think about.
It's just a tough one to process. Yeah. So the latest on Hurricane Melissa is 175-mile-an-hour sustained winds. So, you know, we don't really use gusts as a metric. We just show it because it is of interest. The gust could be up to 215 miles an hour. I mean, I just want you to think about what we're talking about here. 175-mile-an-hour sustained winds is EF3 to EF4 damage. That's the kind of stuff, and I've seen it firsthand. you and I talked after Michael made landfall. I don't know if you remember one of the things that I found the most jarring. Remember, originally they had it as a Cat 4.
Right.
If you remember when you and I talked, I told you because one thing I saw that it was going to be upgraded to a Cat 5. I'm curious if you remember.
It wasn't. Was it the? It was either the aircrafts that were moved.
It was near Tyndall Air Force Base, so you're in the neighborhood for
Was
sure.
it debarking going on?
You got it.
Yeah.
So Rick and I, again, we spent a lot of time together because we work together all the time. But what was jarring to me about Hurricane Michael is it took the bark off trees.
Which is, I mean,
and we could explain that if there wasn't a home that had been destroyed upwind of those trees, meaning a home gets destroyed and then the wood and the roof then take the bark off the trees, but there was no impact points, which means the wind took the
sheer
bark
wind,
off the tree.
yeah, which is insane. I
It's-
remember you being in that and then coming back and just the look in your eyes of like,
I
you
couldn't
know,
believe it.
Yeah, it took you a while to kind of process the damage, and at the same time you were speaking with people there who were directly impacted by it. So it was, you know, after not sleeping on top of all of that, I'm sure it's a lot to handle and also digest. But Mark, we're looking at an elite hurricane
It is
impacting
elite.
Jamaica, and this is going to be making landfall early on Tuesday morning. And the winds aren't going to come down that much. We're talking about maybe 165. So
But
between 175, 165, you're still
I don't even
talking
know
about-
if it's going to come back that. I mean, it looks so good
It
on
looks-
satellite. That's the mesoscale one. That's minute. And Rick, if you look at the long lines there, we were talking about this. Remember how it took a jog to the south?
a little bit.
I don't think there's any westward movement anymore. I think it's now started the northward move,
It's begun.
which means now it's at maybe its furthest west point, and then is going to be making its move towards the island.
Toward the island. The southwestern portion is the one that's going to take a brunt of the impact. And you look at that thing, and we like to say an annular eye. You're like, what are you talking about? It's a perfect symmetrical eye. It's like a donut almost, and that tells you how strong this hurricane is. And you've probably seen some images if you're just kind of scouring through social media today. We have what's referred to as the stadium effect. So that's the inside of the eye, and the clouds are closest at the bottom, and that's because of all the sinking air. And then it goes up like this because of the rising air on the eye wall, and it just looks like a big, huge football stadium. The stadium effect, football stadium, the two are perfect examples. And the stadium effect is another good indicator that we are dealing with a really powerhouse storm.
And to what Rick just said, I'm going to actually do an arrow here, and you'll notice that over the last few frames, you can see how the eye had become a little bit oblong, and now it's become a circular, perfectly round again. We talked about this during our dinner break, that it appeared that maybe there was a brief pause in the strengthening. The pressure was at 906. Some people kind of ask, like, reference points. What does this even mean? So the hurricane, a low pressure, is no different than the low pressure in a tornado. So the lower the pressure, the more it sucks that air in. So then we start to go like, okay, lower pressure, stronger hurricane. Right. We refer to this as intensity. The intensity of the hurricane is directly related to the pressure of the hurricane. So from here, then the obvious question then would become, if you're talking about pressures, Mark, what are some reference points? And I think that's fair. So a reference point, Hurricane Michael was a Cat 5 that made landfall in the U.S. that Rick was covering back here. That was 919 millibars. Some of the legends, Hurricane Katrina got down to, I think, 902. Andrew, I'm not sure off the top of my head. Dorian, which was the one that devastated the Bahamas near Abaco, came in at, I believe, 910. And then this kind of comes back to then what are some of these real legends? Has anything ever breached that 900 level? The answer is yes. So we've seen some hurricanes get into the 800s. One of the most recent, and it is the record, is Wilma. And so Gilbert was like this legendary hurricane for so long that reached 888 millibars. It kind of was the legend of legends in the Atlantic Basin.
And Wilma was 882. So just
was it 882? Okay, we weren't. And then I think the lowest on the planet was Hurricane or Typhoon Tip, which I think was 872.
Was it? I want to look.
So these are elite of the elite. Gilbert formed, wait for it, in the exact same area as what we have right here. Gilbert formed in the Caribbean, and it's not a surprise that these are forming where they are. And I'll kind of come back.
High octane fuel down there. And
So-
Mark, you were right, by the way. Tip 870.
870. Okay.
870.
So what we're going
Typhoon
to
tip.
show them, Rick, we're going to take a look at the ocean temperatures. And this is, if we were to discuss this, kind of similar to what we look at when we talk about tornadoes and what
Severe.
generates
The
severe.
environment.
That needs to have some fuel. So, hurricanes have to have 80-degree Fahrenheit or warmer ocean temperatures. Now, the warmer that ocean is, the greater the fuel you supply. So what you'll notice here is the reds are warm. They're not crazy warm near the Gulf Coast, but watch as I move southward. Rick, the darkest of the purple colors surround Jamaica. It is in the highest octane fuel in our hemisphere right now.
That's insane. And it's almost off the color table that you have.
So we have this unfortunate situation where this is the deepest and warmest ocean water in our entire part of the world. And this is why Melissa has exploded and is able to maintain this high ceiling, because it has that ridiculously high fuel. So this is one of the elements here. Rick, some people have asked what's going to make that turn? Why? Why is it changing? And ironically, it has a lot to do what's going on in the Ohio Valley and what's coming on Wednesday.
If you look back closer to home and there's that low pressure, that trough, and think of that as a big kick, a big boot, and that's going to keep this away from the U.S. mainland, which is critical. I'm really thankful we've had more of an active jet pattern because now that has again and again actually allowed for hurricanes to form, try to make a run at the U.S. mainland, but like you've seen so many times this year, they've been kicked. They've been kicked off to the east, and that's because of the active pattern we have, the mid-latitude cyclones we call, sweeping across the country. It allows almost, it's like a bodyguard force, a level of protection, a shield, if you will, from those storms. Yeah, those troughs are like a shield from storms getting to the U.S. And I've been asked so many times, how come hurricanes have formed but never hit the U.S. this year? That's the reason right there.
So that prevailing pattern is starting to re-evolve in the eastern part of the U.S. And what that is going to do is spread southwesterly wind across that hurricane. That then becomes a steering current. As that low amplifies in the middle of the week, that steering current then becomes stronger. As that steering current becomes stronger, it will then accelerate. And the obvious question is when is that turn going to occur? When is that trough going to get deep enough that it cuts into the high that's been steering it, starts to spread the west-southwesterly wind, and push that storm in that direction? That does appear to be happening in the now. So, Rick, we're going to take a look at what we refer to as the spaghetti plots. So spaghetti plots are something that has become really popular over the years. And spaghetti plots are a way for us to look at what all the computer models are saying. So we have AI models, we have physics-based models, we have ensembles, we have all these different models. What is each one of them saying? And when we kind of look at that, Rick, it gives us a sense of some confidence level, and second, what the uncertainty level is. Because look, this is right at the west coast of Jamaica. That's going to become important when that turn occurs.
Exactly. And here's the thing. If people hear spaghetti plots, when you see the map, you kind of know why. Because it looks like every single model is plotted with a line. And oftentimes when there's some disagreement, it can kind of look like a big bowl of spaghetti.
Exactly.
This time, it does not. I mean, there is maybe one or two outliers.
And that's it.
But that's a very consistent showing of we're going to see landfall here.
So what we note is that when we start to analyze data, one of the things that we strongly look at is how are the models doing in the now. When I just showed you the lat longs, one of the things you noted is that the hurricane was right at the western tip of Jamaica. So initialization on this, Rick, is pretty good.
Yeah.
What we see are models that take it slightly into, let's say, west central Jamaica. And then you can see the white line there. It keeps that western motion a little bit longer and moves that across the west tip. So the eastern side of this hurricane will be the most devastating.
Absolutely.
Montego Bay, Negril, these are areas that could be on the western or the eastern side.
You've been
still.
there before.
I've been to Montego Bay. My sister, this is a sad one. She has a trip to Negril planned in 2 months.
No. Are you serious?
I had to tell her.
Right. You might not have a resort to go to.
And she's so excited about it. And,
Yeah.
but my sister was like, and she's worried about the people.
Yeah.
And I think that, you start to, I think as a human being, there's a part of us that look at all of these things there's a part of Mark Weinberg as a storm chaser that when I chase storms, you're chasing these intense beasts, these tornadoes, these hurricanes that are so powerful. And your goal is then you're so focused on what's going to how to get to the right place. But there's that moment as a storm chaser, at least for me, that you go into the community, you see the things you're talking about on satellite, on radar, on all of those things, and there's this moment where you realize you're in your place, you're going to be safe, you're going to make decisions to be in there where you can be safe in that hurricane, and then you start to realize that not everybody's going to have that luxury.
No, it's the human aspect of it. I mean, you can look at every single map, all the data, and sometimes you get, like you said, so in over your head with trying to make the right decision and to see all the information that you forget that these are people's lives and they're not going to be the same after this storm.
And that's
it's hard.
Your statement is going to ring sadly true. Maria changed the life of a lot of people from Puerto Rico, and there are going to, unfortunately, in Jamaica, there is going to be the life that existed before Melissa and the life that exists after Melissa. And we saw this in the United States, specifically in Katrina. If you ever go to New Orleans, people refer to the post-Katrina New Orleans and
Defines
the
the
pre-Katrina New Orleans. They're different. Jamaica will not be the same Jamaica after Melissa makes landfall. And it's very concerning, Rick, when we look. So the spaghetti plot is showing this going into the western half of Jamaica. There is some play there, but the data is quite consistent here. As we roll that spaghetti plot out further, you can see there's a couple of weird oddities on the left edge of that, but far and away, the majority takes us through eastern Cuba, and then between the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas. Turks and Caicos, I've been there. One of the more brilliant places in the world. The Turks and Caicos, where most people go, is on the northern side of the island, which means a hurricane coming from the south will devastate the coast that the Turks and Caicos rely on for tourism. This is going to go to the west, which would put southerly winds against the southern part of the island, which is not normally the more touristy side. So you're not going to devastate the economy of the Turks based on where this is going. But the greatest concern, and you can see it rockets, is going to be what this does in Jamaica. And Rick, we have a very unique tool here. This is basically future satellite. And things we put on this is the core of this thing. We put the eye in there and we put these streamlines. And it is an interesting way to view these that you can kind of walk us through as we start to advance this thing.
So every day, if you watch us on TV, you see our future radar. So this is a very similar product, just showing instead of rain, it's showing the cold cloud tops. Now, the higher the clouds get, the colder they become. And that you can see surrounds the actual eye, and that is known as the Eyewall. So the strongest winds are going to be about 10 miles outside of the eye of this hurricane. And that's where we're going to see the core of the strongest winds. That's the Eyewall. If you're a storm chaser, Mark will tell you that's what storm chasers want to get themselves into, because then you experience the strongest winds. But there is very intense eye with this storm, an eye wall, and you can see how it kind of wobbles a little bit. It doesn't stay perfectly circular throughout the entire duration, but there's your landfall right there, showing it at 8 a.m. tomorrow. And for landfall to be defined, you have to get halfway through the center of the eye. So it looks like, if you believe this particular computer model, around 7, 8, 9 a.m., we could see landfall with Melissa tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning is the time for landfall, for those of you asking. I saw a couple people asking.
And Rick, I'm just going to quickly just check my Google map. I really am kind of curious on specific locations. I know Kingston's on the far southeastern part of the island. I'm very familiar with Negril. As I mentioned, that's where my sister's going. So I'll give you a couple of points of reference here just so you can kind of get a sense of what we're talking about. Negril is the famous beach that is right here on the far, far, far western tip of Jamaica on the northern side of the island. Montego Bay is right here. So Montego Bay, if you've ever done a cruise to the Caribbean, a lot of people have been to Montego Bay. Ocho Rios is very, very famous because of Dunn's Rivers Falls. So these are areas that are high, high, high tourist areas. On the other side of the island, the tip right here is what's referred to as Treasure Beach, with then Long Bay Beach being right here. So you then kind of get some senses. If I'm storm chasing this, I'm going to either go between, if I'm on this, the furthest west I would go, which is right here, is White House. I would probably position between White House and Treasure Beach. My argument would be on this one is that I think I can right quad the storm on this. The east quad of the storm is where the strongest winds will be. The surge would be most intense. Again, I'm just speaking as a storm chaser in terms of strategizing and how I would approach a storm like this one. It is a very, very intense hurricane, and it also raises the stakes because you have to make sure that you can get in a structure that can withstand 175-mile-an-hour winds. I don't know a storm chaser alive that's trying to get killed. I've seen some that do some really dumb things, but ultimately I don't think that's their goal. So the storm chasers are then going to have to make some really difficult decisions here on how they approach this, in terms of making sure that they stay out
Right.
of they put themselves in a building that can withstand the worst. And then second, they position themselves where they can actually document the hurricane.
Correct.
So
And just
from
to circle back to what we said about Gilbert. So Gilbert was a Category 3. This was in
At
1988
landfall.
at landfall, which means the structures that survived in Gilbert, those are going to be tested. So there's a, I guess I would say, a level of uncertainty in terms of, you know, what's been battle tested and what hasn't. And, you know, as, you know, a meteorologist, you got to think that a lot of things down there are uncertain. You don't really know what
well,
you're
I'll tell you
looking
what
at.
you would need to do.
Rebarred, concrete.
So Rick and I have talked about storm chasing these and a lot because I've done it for a long time. I chased with the Doppler on wheels for years. And you nailed it, Rick. Storm chasers are looking for rebar.
Yeah.
So if they can get into a garage rebar, they'll choose it. If they can get into a structure with rebar, they'll
I've
choose
never been
it.
there, so I'm just wondering exactly how many structures of that type are there. That's
What they
I'm
might
concerned.
look for is a center tunnel.
Right.
So when I say by a tunnel, a lot of times, you know how the hotels have the stairwells. A lot of times they rebar the stairwell in case they had gotten hit by something, the guest would be able to get into that area.
Safety.
So that's what a seasoned storm chaser would be trying to do. Rick, this is a terrifying view at 11 a.m. This is showing the eye
Right
over the top of Jamaica. And people there, Rick, may look up, go into the eye, see 175-mile-an-hour winds, and then look up and see blue skies.
Blue skies and also birds. We've been
Explain the birds one,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people are curious why this one happens.
so unfortunately, birds actually get stuck inside the eye of the hurricane because the winds are calm, so they can't get out because surrounding them
It's ferocious.
every single way out is strong, crazy strong winds. And typically, when storms make landfall, the real intense ones, you can look up and see blue skies, Mark said, but you also see, like, you know, flocks of birds that have been stuck inside that eye wall. And until that thing weakens, they can't get out. And this is going to go back over land into water once again, which means it may be able to stabilize the strength a little bit because land, the friction does rip it apart.
And that's a very mountainous island.
It's very mountainous. And mountainous, I mean, we see this Honduras is one, for example, that just destroys hurricanes. So this is one where
wrecks.
it's gonna chisel this thing to pieces.
But it'll come off.
It comes off. And the hurricane hunters today, just as another side note, they had to abort.
Did you read that story?
I read that. I was just I'd never read anything like that before.
I'm going to read what exactly, because I
the
posted.
verbiage was bizarre.
So what Rick is alluding to is that the National Hurricane Center, they do they're traveling into the hurricane. I'm going to give it to you, Rick, so you can read it. But they take the planes out, they go into the hurricanes, and then they are giving us in situ real-time measurements. Rick, this came through this morning. It was around 11 a.m. and I'm just going to let you read it. If this doesn't send chills up your spine, I don't know what will.
So the NOAA aircraft, which is the hurricane hunters, left the storm early after experiencing severe turbulence in the southwestern eyewall. They try to get themselves into that eyewall.
That's what they're doing purposefully.
Exactly. And they got there and were like, abandon ship, abort, we're getting out of here. They couldn't handle it.
The turbulence was so severe that it was a threat to them, it was a threat to their lives, and it was a threat to the aircraft.
Yeah. And kudos to them for, I mean, every single pass they
Oh my
take.
gosh, they are
They're
heroes in
They
what we
are.
do. They are
Yeah.
heroes in the meteorological world. So you can see it's now back out over land, goes through Cuba on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning,
The
and then you
structure's
can
not as good. The Eyewall's expanded.
the eastern side of the storm is not as intense, but it still has a truck tire eye. Goes through the far eastern Bahamas and maybe affecting the Turks and Caicos, and then it's gone. So, Rick, some of the obvious impacts here. I put up the GFS rain amounts. These are non-elevation numbers. It shows 10 to 15 inches on the island of Jamaica, but Rick, this is not a flat island, and it
No.
has mountains, and those mountains are going to do this, and they wring out the moisture. And so understanding the way Jamaica's terrain is, the center of the island has the mountains. It'll produce probably some 30 plus, as you noted, that would then run down the mountains, cause landslides, and they'll be numerous. And then that water will then rush down into towns and areas, and this will be horrific.
Yeah, and those mudslides. I mean, I hate to even think about it, but coming down on all the towns that sit in the water, and then you have the water coming from you in two directions. You have mudslides coming down, and you have the storm surge coming in, and that is a horrific combination to have in an area. That when you have mountains, it's just something you're susceptible
So
to.
dangerous.
But to have that fact that you have storm surge coming in on the other side too, it's like, okay, well, there's not too many things you can do when it comes to situations like that, which is a difficult thing to swallow. But yeah, Jamaica is definitely gonna be tested with this one, and you can see the central dense overcast. We call it the CDO. It has expanded. It has filled in.
Look at how it goes from darker into that bright white.
Bright white, right?
And that's that annular that you referred to that as. It is a ring of extremely intense convection surrounding this perfectly circular eye.
The last time you heard annular was probably when we talked about the eclipse.
Oh yeah,
with the ring around it. So that it's very similar.
And Rick, when you're looking at it like this, a couple of things I want to note, because I think this is a big deal. You can see the motion of the hurricane. I'm going to show you that it originally was diving west. And then what you're starting to notice is it pauses at the tip there. So what that may be is the influence now starting to occur. Does it go due north, or does it start to make that east-northeasterly or north-northeasterly move? I think it's going to start to take on an easterly jog here and make its move northward. But it very much looks like we're within that point where that move's going to occur. So again, recapping, we have a monumental hurricane. Hurricane Melissa has 175 mile an hour winds, pressures 909 millibars. Analytically speaking, you can see on the western side, see how the clouds here look like they're fanning away? It means that it is established outflow. Aloft, you need to push that air away so that it sucks the air up, rises faster. If you can't evacuate that air aloft, you don't allow the hurricane intensity to go down as low. And there is obviously extremely strong venting still on this.
Mark, we're referring to as the lungs of the storm. Some people like to say that, but the venting is critical for the strength of these storms.
So from here, National Hurricane Center takes it into, again, I'll mention the location one more time from what I was talking about earlier. So we're talking about near White House. I know there's a Sandals in this area. It used to be called Sandals White House. I think it's called Sandals South Coast now. I don't even know. Like, you're on vacation. You're going on the vacation of a lifetime. And somebody's saying you're going to see 165 mile an hour winds with 15 to 20 inches of rain and a storm surge that may be 20 feet high. You're going to scramble and freak. You're going to do everything you can to get off that island. And some of those people may not be able to get off the island. And now they're going to have to deal with unprecedented, in modern times, Category 5 making landfall in Jamaica. The latest forecast here, one thing I will note, it takes it in between White House and Treasure Beach. Secondly, you can notice that the white area there is what we refer to as the cone of uncertainty. So the cone of uncertainty is something that's important. If you look at the cone, the left side of the cone of uncertainty puts it on the west coast. The right side of the cone of uncertainty takes it to near south of Old Harbor, near Portland Cottage. Portland Cottage, which would be south central, that nub you see right there in the south central part of Jamaica. So we're going to have landfall that is occurring, and this is something that's going to become a major story. As a storm chaser, many times these hurricanes make landfall at night, and this is not going to be that scenario. So the storm chasers are going to provide exceptionally compelling footage from this one. Exceptionally compelling because it's going to be during the day. They're going to make decisions, hopefully, to not put their lives at risk. But we've got a Category 5 going in. Latest forecast takes this moving into Cuba as either a Cat 3 or Cat 4, around 145 mile an hour sustained winds, and then pulling it out. So we have established, when we started this video, we obviously wanted to talk about the hurricane, the steering effects, why it's doing what it's doing, where it's going. We talk about from a forecast standpoint, we'd expect the turn to occur, and we're seeing that happening now. The only thing that could weaken this is what we refer to as an ERC, Rick, an eyewall replacement cycle. And these are interesting features that occurs in these top shelf hurricanes. Interestingly enough, Melissa has not had an ERC. Similarly to Michael never had an ERC before making landfall in 2018. But Rick, it's tough for hurricanes to maintain this type of intensity for
Post.
So we don't know. It's certainly near peak intensity. Is there an ERC going to occur?
If it did, that would be a miracle. Just to at least take the intensity down some from where it is. Some of the data hinted at possibly an ERC, but you can't go all in on some data showing an ERC. You still have to play kind of worst case scenario potential with this thing. An eyewall replacement cycle, you would see that happening on radar. You would see that happening on satellite. We have not seen any indication right now. In fact,
Exactly.
it's moving northwest at 2 miles per hour. 2. It is barely moving out there. And once we get the steering currents pushing that, it's going to start to move a little bit faster. Whether or not we do an ERC, wish I could tell you. It's a very difficult thing to forecast, and I wouldn't put much money on that. Hopefully,
and I'm looking at the recon here, Rick, quickly, just to see.
Coming in.
Yes,
it was at 909.
What we would normally be looking for is in the wind data. So if this is the peak intensity right on the edge of the eye wall, we would look for a secondary peak intensity a little bit away. We have not seen any indication whatsoever in any of the recon data at this point yet that an ERC is occurring. And the problem here becomes then, Rick, we're running out of real estate. We're running out of time. The latest pass, by the way, was 9:10. So still...
Okay, so it's holding steady.
I think that we're going to see a Cat 5 landfall. I think we just don't have enough time left.
No.
Even if the ERC starts, it could take 12 hours to get itself fully going, and at that point, it's already making landfall.
And Mark, someone just asked you. He said, "Dumb question, but probably not a dumb question."
There are no dumb questions.
I know there are no dumb questions. Can you have 2 eyes in a hurricane?
So that's kind of what the eyewall replacement is, and it's a great question, actually. So an eyewall replacement cycle means that there's the primary eye, that little tiny thing, and you get a secondary one that forms on the outside of it. What happens then is that secondary eye slowly contracts. As it does, it erodes the inner eye. The inner eye goes away, it weakens, and then you get a larger eye that forms. And as that larger eye then starts to contract, the hurricane would intensify. But in that process of that secondary outer eye forming, with the main inner eye still in play, that you can indeed have 2 eye walls, and that's how the eyewall replacement cycle works. In the process where the larger dome eye is overtaking the smaller is when we get the weakening trend. Ian was able to complete an ERC prior to landfall and then started to re-strengthen, and the reason it did so much damage on Sanibel Island and all of that area, that was just so bad.
It had that time to gather its belongings.
And this is, if an ERC occurs, it's not coming, it's going to weaken it. But I just don't see anything within the data that says an ERC is occurring on this. So let me just look one more time here. I want to just look at what we've gotten so far on the recon here, only because I want to make sure it does show some signs to me that it might be strengthening again a little bit, which is really honestly a terrifying thing. I'm on my weather system, just going to go back because I want to look at the high res. I'm going to push that on the screen here while we talk a little bit. Rick, it it looks so perfect on all edges, so
Textbook.
perfectly violent, and the eye is so perfectly round. It just doesn't show any indication to me that it may be weakening. The pressure right now officially is 909. Again, I've been looking at recon over and over. One thing I will urge caution on is a lot of information gets spewed on the internet sometimes. Some is very true, some is not, but you'll have a lot of armchairing going on. When we try to measure the intensity of a hurricane, we drop balloons into the center in what we call a drop sonde. So the drop sonde is then the gold standard of what the pressure is on the hurricane. So I'm going to read you off the latest that just went through the eye from the recon. 907 with it measured at 850 millibars, 3 knots. And at 907 at the surface, it measured 6 knots, which means it was a dead hit.
Right.
So it's basically 907. National Hurricane Center notes 909. If there's no change, right now the data is showing a landfall or a pressure of 907. So arguably, while the pressure rose a little bit, Rick, briefly, it appears that now, unfortunately, the opposite is happening. Where,
back.
so somebody's asking, this one's a question we got, is 200 mile an hour sustained winds a Cat 6? And I want to go ahead and take this one because you know that one is one that is right up my alley. So there is no such thing. A Category 6 is like saying an EF6 tornado. It doesn't exist. So since it does not exist, basically, there is no point. But now if you're asking me, can you get 200 mile an hour sustained winds? The answer is you cannot. And I'm going to tell you why you can't. Generally, you run out of the limit of the atmosphere. At some point, you do not have enough fuel to generate winds that could be that strong, stay rotational with Coriolis and all the balances that are necessary. We don't have 200 mile an hour hurricanes because we're exiting out of the realm of possibility. Now, if it was to occur in an obscenely warm scenario with ridiculously warm ocean temperatures, is that possible someday in the future? I can't answer that question. I can tell you based on physics now, a 200 mile an hour sustained hurricane is not accurate.
Which is why this.
And there were some people that were posting that. You saw it, right?
It drives me insane. I'm with
Did you see the one I'm talking about?
I saw a couple actually, so it's not just one on multiple platforms. It's not just coming from Facebook, Twitter.
It's just the hardest thing for me is there's people there. Like, there's people there. There's people in Jamaica. There's human beings. You're going to show some models that say 200 mile an hour sustained winds when you know that's not possible. And then you're going to say Cat 6 with a question mark. There's people that live there. There's people that live there that are afraid for their lives. I mean, it's bad enough, but, you know, show some compassion and empathy for other people that are about to experiencing something horrific. So Cat 5 is the strongest in hurricanes. I thought it's a fair question.
157 is where that goes beyond, but that's really where they cap it. I mean, we're seeing 175 right now, just to be completely clear. And 175
is elite.
Is just, I mean, I saw you when you were chasing Michael, and we were at 155, I believe. Was that?
So when Michael made landfall, it was 919 at 155.
Right.
And there was always, here's the thing. What's the difference between 155 and 160? But
just to think
but it was
about
there. It was right there. And obviously that's terrifying. So another question here, Rick. Somebody asked, and you alluded to this earlier. I'll bring it back to you because you answered it. Somebody said that on Facebook, birds can get caught in the eye and could not get out. So explain that. When this thing is starting to form, it doesn't have 175 mile an hour winds.
No. So, I mean, as the churns up, just so you know, hurricanes, they hate wind shear and they love warm ocean water. So as this thing starts to grow, these birds don't get out in time. So like I said, when you have a stadium effect, when you have these basically low pressure in the center, which is your eye, the winds go calm, and then it goes upward and outward as you go up in the atmosphere. And so for the birds, they can't get out of the top. they can't go sideways, north, south, east, west, and get out in any sort of direction because there is this wall, the eye wall, we call it, of extremely powerful winds surrounding it. The only way to get out is to have the storm weaken so the birds can go. So yes, that's actually not a myth. If you hear and read that there are birds getting inside the eye wall and getting stuck, that's a factual statement, which just shows and tells you how strong this hurricane truly is.
And that what are you going to do? They're once they're in there,
you got to fly.
You're going to fly in the 175 mile an hour winds.
It's
I mean, so
happen.
that's a great question. And Justin Lee just said that the pilots reported that they were seeing birds. Somebody asked, Michael King said, are tornadoes and hail associated with a hurricane this strong? Can tornadoes occur? 100%. Yep. Hail is very, very, very unlikely because hurricanes, unlike our mid-latitude cyclones, are warm core. So in chasing hurricanes, it's very odd. We're kind of all programmed in our mind when it rains, it gets cooler. When I chase hurricanes, it gets so warm in the center of the hurricane because they're warm core systems that there's been times where I've been sweating. It's pouring on me and I'm sweating at the same time.
How it's like your mind's like, what is going on?
And one of the things I do want to say here, Rick, in a lot of the comments we're seeing praying for Jamaica. My thoughts and prayers go out to Jamaica. I'm praying hard for them. I just want to tell you guys that, the compassion that we're seeing for the people of Jamaica makes me pretty happy to hear that. And then I would just say this much, is that after this ends and it goes by, there's going to need to be action. And people are going to need to think, how can I help the Jamaicans? How can I help Americans that are stuck on the island? How can I help anybody? And I would then consider in the short term if there are places that you can donate to that are helping. Second, in the medium range, as we get beyond the initial destruction, there's going to need to be help. And there may be opportunities for people to help. And I know that some of our church communities at times will do outreach events where they go to some of these places that have been devastated. I know Haiti was one after the massive earthquake.
Oh, yeah.
That there was a massive push to try to help. And it's going to take time. What's going to happen tomorrow is going to be a benchmark level event for Jamaica. And it's going to be a life-changing event for a lot. Rick, I just want to show this briefly because, again, I find something interesting here. So one of the things I'm seeing now, this is mesoscale data. I'm going to draw a line straight north from where that eye is. Is it me? That thing is making a little bit of a jog due east now. It does appear. So it does appear. Did you get injured?
I'm okay. I just glad I'm off camera.
Rick almost got injured there, but
I'm okay.
Almost. Let's just say that clearly. Almost got injured. Didn't. I always have to ask with Rick almost because there's many times where almost is not the right word.
I almost slipped coming into the building. Remember that? All that rain we have, those carpets are a little wet now. So, but I count myself.
So okay. Rick, it does appear that it could be a trochoidal loop. It could just be kind of hovering around, but I don't think that any westward motion is real now. I think we're now probably starting to wait for that northward jog. It does appear that the models have really been on point on this one. So a couple more.
It's one of those ones where you hate actually seeing good verification because you know what's going to happen with it.
But it does give you a little bit of a sense of confidence, going forward.
What's going to happen, how it's going to unfold.
So somebody's asking about winds on a mountain. Would they be higher or lower? So in the friction layer of weather, what happens, and we remember, we're dropping instrumentation into this hurricane, so we know. But in the way weather works is the friction layer at the lowest level where we live. The friction of Earth will actually slow the winds down. This occurs in tornadoes. It occurs in hurricanes. And so the areas that are then elevated more, and this is why high rises in the U.S., if you ever have a major hurricane, we're all very, very concerned. We saw this in Acapulco with Otis.
I remember that.
Every single window was blown out of the high rises because the winds were stronger. And so when you go up into the mountains, those winds in this hurricane will be stronger. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of those peak maybe near 190 to 200. So that is because you get out of the friction layer there, which these are all really good questions. I'm constantly blown away.
Actually, I was going to say tonight's the questions have been like on par and really like good ones that I wouldn't have seen coming. So thank you for everyone who's watching and putting those comments in there, asking those questions. Um,
And
you guys
somebody's
are
asking
awesome.
about Dorian, Rick, in the Bahamas.
Yeah, another
And
one.
Nikisha's asking about Dorian. So Dorian was a benchmark level event. Um, I think this is Dorian level.
Hmm.
I don't like to make that comparison, but I think this is Dorian level.
It's you kind of want to have at least some storm you can evaluate it with and,
I
and, and show
can't
back
come
and
off
forth,
my
but
head another
it's
one.
hard. No, I think
And
I
you don't
mean,
want to ever
Dorian,
compare anything to Dorian.
no, the other maybe the only M storm that would be close is Maria, but you're talking about a high end hurricane.
And Maria was 150, so like that was not a slouch. But I mean, this is 175.
This is crazy.
And it's like you're talking about some of these Cat 4s. But this thing's so up the chain right now
Right.
into a rare air.
I actually was looking this up. So the strongest winds for a hurricane sustained Allen.
Was that I'm hold on, Alan.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna guess 190.
Boom.
Okay, I thought it
Got
was
that one.
190,
Yeah,
but
I just looking at how strong this was, I just want to get a
Yeah.
gauge and see, this is going to be historic. There's really no way around it. And I know people think we throw the word historic out there all the time. That's not the case. This is going to be a historic hurricane.
I think people throw that out there. I don't think we use that
All
term
right, fair
loosely.
enough. Fair enough.
But so, Rick, when you're saying that 190, we're kind of looking at what we believe is the tops of what our Earth in its current state will support. That's not to say that 1,000 years ago or something it would support something different. But in the current world, about 190 sustained. And that's why when people say 200, that's why that particular number bothers us so much, is because we know it's an over-exaggeration. If you've studied meteorology, if you have studied meteorology, you understand the physics of what goes on. When we go through our schooling, we take physics 1, which is Newtonian mechanics, physics 2, which is electricity and magnetism. I took quantum mechanical theory and relativity as physics 3. You take all the calculuses, partial differential equations, linear differential equations, and you do these things because you need to understand the physics of how it applies in meteorology. So for you then to go and say 200 miles an hour and not then reevaluate that as a scientist, you've already said, I'm not a scientist, because the strongest ever on the planet was in the 880 range and it had 190. So we already know that the 200 is not going to happen. We knew that from the beginning, and understand that for you. Rick, I think it's a valuable piece because it gives the viewer at home a metric now that they can use, and that is the worst. And I see your list. So what are other things you were looking at?
Wilma's on there.
05. You
want to guess the wind?
The peak wind?
Yeah.
So Wilma peaked at, I thought it was 872, but it's 882.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say Wilma peaked at 180. It was 185?
Yeah.
Patricia was 190 also, wasn't it?
Katrina was, and then
Katrina did get to 190?
Yeah. No, 75.
175. So
these winds are comparable to Katrina.
And when Katrina was in the middle of the Gulf, it was 902. All of these that you're mentioning are rare air hurricanes.
And that's what that's basically the message I wanted you to take home, is that when we look at, because we have to look at history to kind of gauge what will happen in the future, and just to put this storm in a category with those hurricanes, which if you don't know the stats about it, I'm sure at home sitting there, you've heard of them before. So to have the same conversation with all these storms in the circle, it tells you something. It tells you this thing is,
you don't want to be in
the monster. Yeah.
And any place any of those that you've mentioned have gone, they've done horrific things. Mitch is another one that did horrific things in Central America. Gilbert is a legend. In the Caribbean, Maria's obviously a legend. Irma's a legend. Hurricane Grenada was hit by a Cat 4. I believe it was in 04, Hurricane Ivan. That's a legend down there. I chased Ivan, so I remember that.
Okay.
Ivan came through, I believe, as a high-end Cat 4. Last year was the B storm last year. Was it Bertha last year? Beryl last year went and hit northern Grenada and Kirikou. And that was a high-end Cat 4 that is now benchmark level event for that area. So all of these things are higher-end events that you just don't forget. The eye on this thing, again, you can see is chiseled. The latest from the National Hurricane Center puts this as a hurricane with 175-mile-an-hour sustained winds. As we've noted, the recon did measure 907, so the National Hurricane Center will update that at 11 p.m. And this is all, we wanted to just give you some information. This is not our viewing area, Rick. I think this is a different Facebook Live and YouTube Live and X Live than we normally do. A lot of times we focus on what's occurring in our area, and we decided together, let's do a video to help people out that are curious in our area.
And it's such a big deal that you can find information anywhere. So we're thankful that you're coming to us to get this sort of information because, like Marcus said, like this is science. We take this very seriously, and these are people's lives. So we really wanted to get some concrete, good information. We're now less than 24 hours from landfall, so this is really good, you know, information for you to have, and for those of you who may have trips planned there,
or have been there and have
been,
left some of their heart there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a place that's not too far from home. For some people, it is home. We just kind of wanted to cover something because it is going to be, I mean, this is a headliner. And so we're going to try to do as much local as possible, but every once in a while, we're going to change it up a little bit, and we're going to come at you, especially when you see that satellite, you're just kind of like the presentation's just mesmerizing in the worst way possible.
So let's just recap here quickly. The pressure is 909 millibars. Somebody asked, what does that mean? The lower the pressure, the more intense the storm. One more time. The lower the pressure, the more intense the storm. So this becomes the real absolute metric of the intensity of a hurricane, because sustained winds can be affected actually by other things. So when we start to talk about the most intense hurricanes on the planet ever, we go by pressure. So the pressure at 909 millibars puts this on par with Katrina when it was in the middle of the Gulf. Puts this almost exactly at what Dorian was as it made landfall in the Abacos in the Bahamas. This puts this in rarefied air. Now, is this up there with a Wilma when it peaked out or a Gilbert when it peaked out? No. But Rick, the intensity is what we're talking about near landfall, and this may very well maintain this.
Yeah, Category 5, no doubt about it.
So this is going to be a Category 5. Is it going to make landfall as a 5? In my opinion, it's a high probability. From there, when is this going to make landfall? It should be moving over the southern coast of Jamaica between South Coast. I'm going to say between South Coast and east to South Coast by about 12 miles. That's where I think landfall will be. The effects will be devastating. This will have a catastrophic flood threat. The wind will do unthinkable damage. There will be areas that no longer have any green left on this island. In fact, much of the island probably won't. The water will be so catastrophic in the mountains that it will cause massive flooding coming down. The south coast of Jamaica will be inundated by up to a 20-foot storm surge. And this is the terrifying scenario that is setting up.
That's what's crazy about hurricanes is having all these layers
just stacked up.
It's
so
insane.
The landfall, we believe, Rick, is probably going to be between somewhere around 7, 8 a.m. and maybe as late as around 10, 11 a.m. You mentioned this earlier, Rick, but defining landfall, obviously people are like, okay, that's when it hits the coast. There is more to it than that.
Right. You have to get the center of the eye. As soon as the center of the eye of the storm, that's when it hits land. That's when we call landfall. We declare it, and at that point, you look at the winds, the pressure, and that's how we say, okay, well, that's the bench part. That's where we classify it as, okay, landfall's been made, and then from there on out, usually pretty quickly, especially with a high mountainous terrain, we'll see the pressure go up, meaning the storm is weakening a little bit, and the winds start to come down. Hopefully that happens quicker than not, but it's something that we'll be watching very carefully here. So tomorrow morning, I'm telling you, it's probably gonna be tough. We're gonna wake up like wanting to look at stuff on your phone, just see what's going on.
These are hard nights to sleep because, again, for me as a storm chaser, I think back to what I saw in Katrina. I think back to what I saw in Michael, and sometimes it's hard for me even to talk about it. It does tear me up a little because I remember the people. The most intense memories I have of hurricanes was seeing the people afterwards. After Katrina hit in 2004, I don't talk about this one a lot because it's hard. So Katrina makes landfall. as a high-end category 3-4 with a 28-foot surge. We barreled down in this parking garage. We saw a Saint Bernard that was washed into the garage we were in, and you could see the terrified look on the Saint Bernard's face. I'll never forget that. But after the surge came back down and the people were walking around, we talked to a gentleman who'd just been hit by it. We saw a lady that was washed up to our garage. She had obviously been ripped out of the home. She didn't have pants on because it had ripped them off. And it was traumatizing, to say the least. And we drove a little bit west of where we were. And we drove into this community where we could see the wall of water and what it had left. And we had to, in our work boots, hike over this mountain of debris that was probably 8 or 10 feet tall. And there was people's pictures. There was a refrigerator that was in there. You opened the door was open on the refrigerator and the food was still in it. And we found this man. And this man was crying. And he had said that he had gone through Camille. And he said it wiped out his home and he rebuilt it after Camille. And his home was destroyed again from Katrina. And people have asked me why I stopped storm chasing so much. And it's because I couldn't handle it anymore. I couldn't handle seeing the destruction and horror. I couldn't handle looking in people's eyes anymore, seeing after what had occurred. And I felt that I wanted to just be part of the warning process, which is what we are. And so for me, when I look at something like this, I know I already can see the look. And I know what it's going to be like for the Jamaicans. And this is what bothers me the most, is I know what it looks like. I've seen it before. These are some of the worst memories I have that I don't like to talk about. But this is the level of damage that's going to occur in Jamaica. And there are going to be lives that are forever changed. Hopefully everybody survives. I hope. I cannot imagine that's the case on this.
I'm with you. And I've worked with this man for 13 years, and I like to think I've heard a lot of your stories. That one I have not.
I just don't like to talk about it.
I know, but the fact that, you share that on such a bigger platform than just in the back office talking weather, it's, appreciate that.
So what I would just ask is keep Jamaica in your thoughts and prayers tonight. Please, after this makes landfall, consider how you can help. Yeah. Because there are people that are going to need our help, and we can help. Melissa's going to make landfall as a Cat 5. It's going to have devastating effects on Jamaica. And landfall, again, looks like it's going to be mid-morning tomorrow, on into the probably in the mid-morning time frame. Rick, if you guys have just joined us in our Facebook Live, if you're here on Facebook, you can follow Rick. He's always on his Facebook page, Rick DeLuca. If you're in my page, it's Mark Weinberg. You'll get alerts when we go live. We go live for a lot of different things. We have a lot of expertise in a lot of different weather. So that's the reason that we wanted to do the video like this, because I have a lot of expertise in storm chasing, and we see things that are horrifying, and people want to know what's happening. So we appreciate you guys in here. As always, if you guys enjoy the Facebook Lives, you can always throw some thumbs up and some hearts across the screen. Please share the video. If you have anybody out there that needs this information, this is going to be highly valuable for your friends, your family, and those even outside of our area that might have interest in what's going to occur here. For our YouTube followers here, and Rick, I think this is a record on our YouTube. We have more people in here on YouTube than we've had in a long time. Our Facebook's been very, very, very large numbers, but it's nice to see our people on our YouTube channel as well. We appreciate you guys joining in here. It's 9:45. We've got to get ready for the news here. I got to touch up a little bit before I go on TV. Anyways, just a little bit of the things that I've seen as a storm chaser, just sharing. But please,
we're glad you're on this side now, helping us out. That's,
I appreciate that. So please think, guys, after this makes landfall, how you can help, and keep those in Jamaica in your thoughts and prayers tonight. Thanks for everybody joining us in here in our video tonight. And I will see you guys on WDRB News at 10. I'm going to be discussing, because we have local things of interest tomorrow. We've got showers and heavy rain midweek. This is a big one. It's Halloween week on top of that. Are we going to be able to get the rain out? I'll spend time on that at 10 o'clock. Rick DeLuca is on WDRB News at 11. Join him at 11 and 11:17. He's going to get a chance to look at new data, update rain totals as
Some
well.
people could see maybe up to 2 inches of rain.
Quite a bit of rain. Obviously nothing like what we're talking further south, but locally close to home, it's going to have an impact. So I will see you on WDRB News at 10. Rick DeLuca